Hey there everyone, welcome back to Utility Sports. Really excited for this video as it's completely different from other things we've talked about on the channel, and it's a little bit of a preface to what I expect to start to happen in the NBA more and more frequently. And I think there's already teams that are doing it currently that I need to bring attention to. Now, this video originally was going to be focused specifically on Luka Doncic. You do see Zach LaVine and OG Anunoby in the thumbnail. Those two players are in there because I wanted to talk about the teams that you see with those jerseys, the Spurs and the Pacers. We won't necessarily talk about those two as much in this video. If you guys do enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content, and let's jump into it here as we get going into the video preview. 5 NBA teams are lurking in plain sight. That's the premise of this video, and you might say, what does he mean by plain sight? We're going to break that down in this one. We're going to look at potential player targets for 5 specific NBA teams, and we'll talk about how they're all in different circumstances currently. Not all of these 5 teams are sitting there with the, idea that they're one player away from a championship, right? That's kind of the easy idea, but they all have the same long-term aspirations, which is what we're going to really break down in this video. I'm super excited for it. Again, if you do enjoy, make sure to leave a like. And what are those long-term aspirations? It's all about angling their franchise toward being in a position toward landing a mega star player. And that might sound super easy, okay, right? Like draft good players, develop, and be a really good young team that maybe becomes a piece away. It's a lot harder than that. And I think there's a lot of challenges in the process, especially in the NBA when, of course, it's a very player-driven league. You have to try and battle market size and a lot of different things as well. Players want to constantly team up with other stars. There's challenges across the board for every single NBA team when it comes to not only attracting a big-time player, but also retaining that big-time player, which creates this real polarity in the league, which is so fascinating to watch and study of what stars go where, when, what other stars do they go there with. We've seen great examples of that in the past, like the Miami Heat, obviously the Oklahoma City Thunder, both with the big 3 that they drafted, but then Paul George goes there via trade to play with Russell Westbrook. They get him to extend. The Clippers with Kawhi and Paul George. There's been a lot of examples, though. Kevin Durant everywhere he's gone in his career. James Harden now recently. The question is, what stars are going where? And we're going to talk about that, but not necessarily what stars are going to go there soon. This is more of a long, drawn-out process video, and these are some of the potential stars to watch for. Joel Embiid, he was a player on my radar, and I think with the recent trade of James Harden, I think that the Sixers are currently in a spot where they are safe. They're likely not going to lose Joel Embiid. I think that the Sixers are very well set up for the future. Luka Doncic is still a player for us to keep our eyes on. Now, the Mavericks are 4-0. They're playing really great basketball. As a Mavs fan myself, I am overjoyed with the way that this team has played, even on a night when Luka Doncic doesn't have his best game. Guys like Grant Williams, Derek Lively step up big time. The Mavs play really great basketball and still walk out with a win. That's something that we're not accustomed to seeing during Luka Doncic's tenure with the Dallas Mavericks, and because of that, it's a positive sign for the season. But if things do sour, Luka, of course, is the name to watch on this entire list. There's a real argument he's the best player on this list. There's a real argument he's perhaps the most available player on this list at some point in the near future, which is why he has an asterisk next to his name. Zion Williamson has an asterisk as well, and the reason for that is there's already been rumors that, maybe New Orleans and Zion are not a long-term perfect marriage. Maybe Zion ends up finding his way out the door at some point, whether that's by the decision of the New Orleans Pelicans or by his own decision. That's yet to be seen, but Zion, I think at some point, will likely play for a bigger market. We'll have to monitor that. Then we have some interesting names on here as well. Ja Morant for the Memphis Grizzlies. That's a very fascinating situation to keep our eyes on. The Grizzlies have not played good basketball this season. They're off to an 0-5 start. Is Ja Morant somebody who, yes, I know he's serving a suspension right now, but is there any possibility that within the next 2, 3, 4 years, he could switch teams? That's going to be a question mark. Devin Booker, the Phoenix Suns right now, you'd say, absolutely loaded roster. Bradley Beal, of course, has yet to make his Suns debut. Booker is missing time with injury. Kevin Durant, he's Kevin Durant, right? You might say, well, what's the reason for Devin Booker to want out? Well, the concern here and the point of this video isn't for this season, it's for multiple seasons down the road. And if you look at the Suns' long-term future, well, it ain't pretty. And Devin Booker might become a star that is available at some point down the road. Trae Young in the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, it feels like every other day there's some type of rumor drama there. I think Trae Young's a really good player. I think Atlanta wants to keep Trae Young. With all of the rumors and speculation we've heard so far, though, I think it is possible that at some point in his career, Trae Young's playing elsewhere. And then Donovan Mitchell for the Cavaliers, I mean, I don't even have to spend too much time on that. He will be playing for a different team at some point in his career. It's pretty obvious. I don't think that Cleveland is going to be his final destination per se, so we'll have to keep our eyes on him. But these are just some of the stars to potentially watch for. Really, the thing I want to talk about in this video is the teams, and the first team to talk about is the Oklahoma City Thunder. There's no surprise here. Some of these teams are quite obvious destinations for some of these players, and the entire premise of this video is which teams have set themselves up to become long-term players at landing a mega star or maybe two, and I think Oklahoma City is at the forefront of that discussion. They have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is a superstar in his own right. I think Chet Holmgren is going to blossom into a star-level player. They've got a lot of really good talent. Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams, I think is an underrated player in today's league. Josh Giddey, the Slob Wizard. What a nickname. Well, I just want to point out, I think the Slob Wizard is going to perhaps be the most valuable trade asset out on the market over the next 24 months. And, you know, it's probably devastating to hear for Oklahoma City Thunder fans. Josh Giddey's a fantastic young player. I think really talented. I was super high on him in his own draft. And for all of those reasons, he's going to be the top trade chip available. He's a massive point guard. You could argue that if there was no Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on Oklahoma City, well, Giddey would have a lot more responsibility. He'd put up way better numbers. He'd be playing with the ball a lot more. I think his just overall statistical profile would be enhanced because of that. And I think all 29 other teams around the league are going to bet on that premise as well, just like I individually would, which means Oklahoma City, along with all of the draft picks that they own, whether it's the Clippers or Rockets or whichever team you want to say that they own, because it seems like they own everybody's, they're in a spot to load up for a massive trade for a superstar. On the graphic, I, of course, have Luka Doncic. He would be a fantastic get for them. Some type of package around Josh Giddey, salary filler, 4, 5, 6 first-round picks. The Thunder have the edge over everybody with that type of offer, which is how I would say realistically that they are the forefront of this video. They are the main topic of discussion. And actually in our Discord, links in the description, by the way, go make sure to join that. There was a lot of discussion on how Oklahoma City, maybe they look at something like a Lauri Markkanen type trade. And then one of our lovely members in the Discord said, I think they're lining up for something a little bit bigger. And I completely agree. I think they are lining up for something bigger, and that something bigger would be a Luka Doncic-esque player. Obviously, they could use another big. If a guy like Joel Embiid or Zion Williamson do become available, Oklahoma City would be at the forefront of that discussion. The whole point and premise of this video, again, is whichever star does ultimately become available within the next 3-4 years, these are the teams lined up to do it, and they're all in different paths. Oklahoma City's really good right now. Some of the teams you're going to see in this video are not. Some of them are actually very bad right now, but they've all got really smart things going on inside their organizations. I think their front offices are smart. I think they're lining themselves up very, very well, and Oklahoma City, headlined by Sam Presti, is doing it better than anybody right now. The next one, San Antonio, and well, the Spurs have a little bit of an advantage here over some of the other teams, and that's a guy named Victor Wembanyama. Now you're going to see Trae Young on the graphic here. I don't even necessarily think he's the player that they're going to go out and target, but they're going to target some high profile, high statistical output, some really great player. I think a guy like Trae Young would be fantastic. His ability to stretch the floor, his ability to operate the pick and roll. He's one of the best passers in the league. I think he would be absolute money in San Antonio playing with Victor Wembanyama. I think setting up Wembanyama with really easy baskets, whether it's on lob opportunities. I think Trae Young could become a very good short roll passer, something he hasn't done a lot of in his career so far, but I think he would be really, really good at it if you asked him to do it. I think he would be one of the best options in terms of long-term pairing with a guy like Victor Wembanyama, because yes, I know Trae Young defensively, there's some limitations. At times, maybe he's a little bit of a defensive playmaker. It's kind of comes and goes with him a little bit. But when you have someone like Victor Wembanyama, who I think is going to be a multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year, he's always going to be in the candidacy. He's going to be in the running for that award frequently. 7'4" makes up for a smaller point guard. That's just the reality. I think Victor and Trae Young would be box office together. San Antonio is also a team that would be in the running for a Luka Doncic or a Joel Embiid if that became available, right? They're a team that they would be set up for something. They've got a ton of draft picks. They've got their own picks. They've got young players. They are really well set up to make something happen. So we'll have to keep our eyes on the Spurs. But again, winning the lottery this past draft, getting Victor Wembanyama, it kind of gives them a pretty significant advantage over some of these other small market teams who are making some similar preparations and plans long term of how do we attract stars to our situation. Well, having someone like Victor Wembanyama already in the building who draws so much attention, that's a very great starting point. San Antonio has that. They have other key young pieces like Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Trey Jones. They just extended Zach Collins. Jeremy Sohan's awesome. I mean, I like their team. I like their team a lot. I think that they're one or two pieces away from becoming pretty serious contenders within the next couple of years. And I think with the draft this year, some of the free agency money that they're going to have, some of the trade assets that they have to make something like a Trae Young deal happen, for example, they're going to be able to get something done, and they're going to become very, very, very good very, very quickly. Now we go into Team 3, and again, this one's not really a surprise here. The Utah Jazz, after making deals with the Cavaliers and the Minnesota Timberwolves, they have positioned themselves to have a boatload of draft assets over the next 7 years. And because of that, not only do they have a lot of their own picks to trade, they've got other teams' assets to trade as well, plus a collection of their own good young players like Taylor Hendricks, who I think is going to blossom into a really good player. We got a guy like Keontae George, who I think is really talented as well. They've got, Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler. They brought in John Collins for basically nothing. Jordan Clarkson's a tradable contract at this point. The Jazz are really well set up. So then the question is, how do they take that next step forward? And it's at the point guard spot. Now I have John Morant on the graphic. Again, as you guys noticed at this point, the graphic isn't necessarily like, oh, this is who I'm expecting them to get. It's just kind of a generic player who could fill that type of need. Again, I'm not even saying these are the players that are going to ask out or, fully become available. But if a John Morant-esque player, some type of dynamic star point guard, does become available on the market, Utah is in a position to jump all over that. They've got the big man front court play in Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen behind it. They just need high-level perimeter play. Getting a guy like John Morant would be dynamite for the Utah Jazz, or a Trae Young, or a Luka Doncic, which there's already been a lot of rumors that Danny Ainge is maybe positioning himself for some type of trade for a Luka Doncic, which, he's in a position to do it. He's got all the assets. He's got young players on rookie deals that have value across the league. He's got, salaries that can, wiggle in and out to match a contract like Luka Doncic's. There's a lot of ways Utah could go about it. They could stick with their picks. Ainge has always done a good job drafting. Maybe he goes on and targets a Boston Celtic and Jason Tatum. Maybe there's a way that, he's got I'm sure a decent relationship there. Maybe he can convince Tatum to take a free agency visit, and then it's really up in the air. You never really know, right? I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't say Tatum's going to be a Utah Jazz, but I think that there's some, pathways out there that make some sense for Utah to try and explore over the next couple of years. Add in perimeter talent, and again, it's all about positioning, and the Utah Jazz are really, really well positioned for long-term mobility and making some moves when they want to. Number 4, the Indiana Pacers, and this is not typically a team that gets kind of credited with a lot of long-term flexibility. And you see on the graphic, I don't have a player specifically picked out for them at all, because I think when you look at their roster, Miles Turner, Tyrese Halliburton, those are the real two building blocks, right? And then they've got other key pieces in there too. Jarris Walker, Benedict Mathurin, you probably could categorize as building blocks as well. You've got other nice contributors. Aaron Nesmith, for example, they traded for Obi Toppin, who I do believe in still. At this point, they signed Bruce Brown. They've got a lot of good players. Pacers fans, you guys know how I feel about this roster. I mean, just very, very flush with talent, and because of that, they're a team that is perfectly aligned to make a consolidation trade at some point. They have access to all of their own draft picks. They've got a player in Tyrese Haliburton who players want to play with, and again, similar to the Spurs conversation, who would want to go to San Antonio? Well, it's because of Victor Wembanyama. The same situation here lies with Tyrese Haliburton in Indiana. When you have a star player who makes other players around him better, people naturally gravitate there. The Pacers are becoming that. We're getting real mid-2000s vibes from this Pacers team again with the amount of talent. I know, the night I'm recording this, they did lose by 50-something points to Boston. Who cares? Okay, this one game. The Pacers are going to be really good for a very long time, and I really do believe in this team. Pacers fans, you know how much hope and kind of love I have for you guys. It's fun watching Rick Carlisle coach you guys. I'm a Mavericks fan, so I watched him, lead my Mavs to an NBA Finals and championship, what feels like so long ago now at this point. But for Indiana, just, it feels like they've got so much talent. They're just like one top-end player away, and they have the pathway to get there. Once they get a superstar wing, some type of really high-end small forward contributor, power forward maybe, they're really, really dangerous. They've got the players around it to work. Halliburton's probably the most versatile player in the league right now because he's going to be able to work with any type of offensive mold because he's good on and off the ball as a guard, which is really unique and dynamic. And I think he's just an absolute game wrecker as a point guard because he's so smart. So the Pacers are just a really great team that's one piece away. I don't know what that piece is yet. It's really difficult to find a superstar wing. They just don't become available very frequently. Indiana will have the opportunity to make something happen at some point. There will be challenges along the way to getting there, especially the availability of players. But once they find someone who is available, if they pull the trigger, the Pacers are going to be really, really dangerous and a serious title contender sooner than later. Which leads me into team number 5 here. And when I talk about these teams are being in different, completely different situations, well, the Wizards are bad. The Wizards are really, really bad. I could have told you that before the season started. This was my prediction for the worst team in the league this year, them in Portland. I just did not trust either of them. Washington and Portland are both going to be very bad this year. The Wizards specifically are bad by design. That is intentional. They want to lose. They're losing. That is the entire goal. And they have a very, very smart man running the organization in Michael Winger. They have a fantastic GM in Will Dawkins. And you see for this team, there's 2 players on the graphic, and this one is a little bit more intentional. Somehow, some way, the Washington Wizards, I think in the year 2023, have made themselves somewhat legitimate threats at bringing in a player like Luka Doncic in a few years and a player like Josh Giddey. That's how smart the Wizards front office is. You look at everything that they've done this offseason. They extended Deni Avdija on what is a descending contract. He's going to be so cheap in 3 or 4 years, it's just ridiculous. You look at Kyle Kuzma. They kept him around on a descending contract. They somehow found a way to trade Bradley Beal and turn him into actual serious legitimate assets, something I thought was not doable with a no trade clause. They found a way to do it. So real credit to them. You also look at the situation trading Porzingis away, that probably pennies on the dollar, but you still got pennies when realistically he could have opted out for nothing. The Wizards have made a lot of smart decisions. They flipped Chris Paul into a draft pick and a second round pick, plus Jordan Poole, who, listen, Poole's going to have his awesome moments. He's also going to have his terrible moments. At the end of the day, who cares? He helps you lose. You're going to have him on the roster for a while. You're going to eat part of the contract. And at some point, it's going to become an expiring. And it's a massive expiring you can turn into a trade chip with all of the draft assets you've acquired over the collection of moves and trades that they've made. They've got more moves coming. They have Tyus Jones to trade. They've got a collection of players. But what you do know about this roster, the Wizards are going to have long-term probably Deni Avdija, Corey Kispert, Kyle Kuzma, Daniel Gafford. Those 4 players, plus Bilal Coulibaly, those 5 players are a really good starting point for building a team. And if you're able to find a way to bring in 2 guys like Luka Doncic and Josh Giddey, all of a sudden your guard play goes from abysmal to really, really great. You're looking at a really dangerous team that can compete and go a very long way in the Eastern Conference. Now, I'm not saying Luka Doncic 100% goes there, but I think they're a team that would be in the running and in the mix for a potential trade because they have the assets to get it done. You might wonder, well, why Josh Giddey? Here's the thing. The Thunder at some point are going to run into some financial constraints just like they did with James Harden, Serge Ibaka, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant. Because of that, well, Josh Giddey might be the guy that becomes available. It definitely won't be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It will not be Chet Holmgren if I had to guess. And then it's probably not Jalen Williams. Josh Giddey feels like probably the most expendable. And if you look at who Washington has in their front office, Will Dawkins, former Oklahoma City Thunder team member, well, he has a pre-existing relationship with Josh Giddey. Very possible he would, probably put some good words in and try and get him into Washington. I think that the Wizards, really bad. I have to say that they're just not good right now, but that is by design. They're setting themselves up for a collection of draft picks. This year, maybe that's a guy like Ron Holland, Matas Buzelis, Alex Sarr, Isan Almansa. There's a lot of great options. So you go check out my last mock draft. The Wizards are really smart. They know what they're doing. They're setting themselves up for some serious long-term success. If you're a Wizards fan, you've got to be super excited because this is not something I've been able to say the last 4 or 5 years about Washington Wizards basketball. I've never been a big believer in the franchise. All of a sudden, I have belief. Michael Winger, smart. Look at what he did with the Clippers. I think this is probably the most important point of the entire video. Michael Winger was in part behind the entire Kawhi Leonard move. Recruiting him, getting him to come to the Los Angeles Clippers, a team that was not viewed as a destination. Michael Winger has serious experience in making something like this a reality. The Wizards have the right man in place. They've got good people in that front office and in that organization now. And because of that, they are going to at some point grow into a destination, even though they currently are the exact opposite of that. Now, Team 6. Listen, I don't have Team 6 for this video. Team 6 is going to get its own entire video, which I'm very excited about. What I want you to do right now is I want you to guess down below what team is team number 6. Let me know down in the comment section below who you think team number 6 is. Again, they're getting their own video on the channel, so I'm very excited for that. Make sure you stay tuned for that. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content. Thank you all so much for watching. It really does mean a lot. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure to go check out some of the other videos on the channel. You'll see over on the left the most recent video. You'll see over on the right my suggested video for you. Make sure to go click on one of those. Check it out on the channel. I'd love for you guys to stick around, watch some more of our content here at Utility Sports. Thanks again so much for watching, guys, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.